Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Fiction and Feelings. So, today we are talking about the movie Vengeance. So, this wasn't even planned for me to literally talk about Vengeance. I, this wasn't planned for me to talk about Vengeance. I literally put on my Netflix while I was trying to do something else just to have like background noise. And all of a sudden, I'm getting into it and I'm just like, this is literal gold for content. Content gold if you must. You must. Because I was just like, there's so much commentary on society. I've literally never heard of this movie anymore, like at all. But let's start. Let's rewind a little bit. So, the themes are storytelling and tragedy, media clout, morality, injustice, and when storytelling crosses a line. It helps us to talk about not just the movie, but the world it reflects back at us when we're talking about vengeance. So when you Google vengeance, it will say New York. A writer from New York City attempts to solve the murder of a girl he hooked up with and travels down south to investigate the circumstances of her death. It was released July 29th, 2022. Screenplay and directed by BJ Novak, who also is the lead character. Had a lot of roles in this movie, buddy. Um, Other famous faces would be like Dove Cameron, Ashton Kutcher, Boyd Holbrook, and Issa Rae, just to name a few. I'm not going to name the entire cast. When you literally look at the genre for this book, when you look at the genre for this movie, there's horror, comedy, it says musical, thriller, all sorts of things, and I'm just like, yeah, y'all just gotta figure out what type of movie this was, so y'all just put it under every single genre, but let's digress. So, let's get into the breakdown. So, when I first started watching, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is the perfect background movie. I'm not gonna care anything about this story. This story, Loki, kind of sucks. We just get the writer, and he's talking to another guy, and they're talking about pretty much just cheating on people or one night stands, and how you don't have to be monogamous, and just basically doing the I'm a F boy and like it, and that's the way that I want to live. All power to you if that's the way that you want to live, but also stop playing with people's feelings. But whatever. So then, oh, he's also a podcaster, emotionally detached and opportunistic. All these things written down, but you kind of get that from just like you have to. It's such a stupid movie to watch, but at the same time, it has such great commentary because it gets you in the feeling of this movie is absolutely ridiculous. We get a phone call from the brother, and you just hear a southern accent on the phone being like, "Oh, your girlfriend died, and her funeral is next week." And he's just like, "What? My girlfriend?" So he doesn't even save the names of girls in his phone. So he'll have like her name is saved under Texas because she's from Texas. And he'll have Betty Hinge, Bella Bumble, like various things like that. And not just like that, because I know that some people say things like that, but no. It's literally like if he has like a name of something that they remind him of, like he'll just put that name so that he can give himself a context clue, because he has so many girls and he's sleeping around with so many girls that he can't remember what it is that he is doing. So he has to have them in the phone that way. So when we get introduced to him and this new character, this just this Texan voice of your girlfriend just passed away, and then he slowly gets manipulated into coming out to Texas to come to the funeral, because he's like, oh, I'll just send flowers, and the person is like, no, you want to send flowers, or you pick up flowers when we get to the airport and I pick you up, and blah blah blah. And then the rest of the that scene, that chunk of the movie, this first part of the movie, is New York versus Texas. Like how New York operates, it's urban, intellectual, you have serious people. Like there's a dating scene and it's fun. You go to clubs, you experience things, like you have a job, you have to pay rent, you have like that lifestyle. It's easy to go to a store and buy something. While in this rural other, so they literally made Texas like if Texas isn't ginormous and doesn't have other things other than cowboys. So they made it Texas, cowboys, the school that they rep is Texas Tech. um they I don't even know. It just made it like country, country, country versus not country. And it was just like Texas isn't even just like that. Like, of course, Texas has guns and cowboys and all the things that they put in the movie, but they made it so satirical and so emphasized that you're just like, okay. And then Dove Cameron, she's just playing like pretty much just a stupid girl. Like, she's not the brightest. She's not the brightest in the bunch, but it's making it feel hometown, like small hometown type of vibe. Everybody knows everybody. It's all linked and interconnected. People are not the brightest, and he's just getting plopped in there. And he's trying, like, basically, this is where the opportunistic thing from earlier comes in, where it's like, okay, well, I'm looking for content for my podcast that I want to have. So why not use this? Why not use being placed in this place as content? Because the brother then says, oh, she didn't just pass away from an overdose, she was murdered. And you're like, okay. So he starts to believe, okay, she could be murdered, because he makes fun of them at first, like behind their back, to his boss, who's Issa and his lover in this movie. She is just like, we'll just follow along, or just make the little story that we're making, that little podcast episode of you being placed in a place like this, like you being the type of person that you are and being forced to be put in this setting, and trying to make a story like humanizing him almost, I would say. And then he starts to think about what the brother said, because everybody keeps saying, oh, she would never touch an Advil, she'll never touch an Advil, she'll never touch an Advil. So he's like, okay, what if she died of an OD and she would never touch an Advil? Then clearly something would have happened. There are other context clues, like things that police would say, or things that different people around the place would say, that just made it suspicious. So we get to find different characters. Each character is a serious dramatization of that stereotype, and you're just like, oh, it's one of these movies. It plays the part, and it's good in that sense, but you're also like, you're so annoying for doing this. So we meet Ashton Kutcher's character, whose name is Quentin, and he's this music producer, and he talks about how every story, how life is just a story. Life is pretty much music, and everybody is just adding their sound to the soundtrack of life. Like, ooh. So, so like he literally does this whole monologue where he's trying to get this girl to sing her song in the studio, and it's all like by the time he finishes, but also like, okay, is it that deep? But I guess it's that deep. So then that brings up the whole emotional and social commentary, because culture, surveillance culture, and commodification of trauma. It gives you the idea, this movie gives you the idea of like recording everything, whether it's sound, whether it's voice, whether it's like your face. It's just a whole picture that you're trying to encompass. And it's a recurring metaphor in this, as we can see, because the New Yorker is trying to record for his podcast, so he's doing it through sound, but through voice. Ashton Kutcher is trying to do it through music, so a type of sound. But it frames the life being one long record, and everybody adding their own sound, just like how he had said with his snap, snap, snap monologue moment. And sometimes we can go through doing that without caring about the people who are behind it. So, for instance, with podcasts, often today there's a lot of true crime podcasts because people are interested in the stories. People are interested in the minds behind crimes, in why they would do what they would do, like what made them do it, who made them do it. Is it somebody else behind it? We have people who can't, the victims in those situations, who can't speak for themselves, who can't say their own story, but we have eyewitnesses and people who were a part of their lives, being able to tell you a story about that person. And then the element of the podcaster or the content creator just doing a social commentary on the tragedies, and then it going viral, and it makes you easily slip into kind of like exploitation of, did I get consent for this, the context of this. And I know some people are trying to be as ethical as possible talking about it, but it's death and it's harm done to somebody. So it's like, how ethical can I actually be when talking about these things? So in the movie, when he comes to Texas and he's hopping around dealing with talking about the death, it's like compelling content for him, but it's not really about finding the truth of what happens at first. He doesn't care that much. Like, he doesn't care about that character because he literally hooked up with her once. Like, they think that he was in this deep relationship with her. He hooked up with her once. Her name wasn't even saved in his phone. So for him, this is purely for his own gain. He is 100% just using this for his podcast. So it's the intent of telling the story doesn't even matter sometimes, because we just tell stories that aren't ours to tell. But yeah, with surveillance culture, every moment of life is now potentially public, all the time, always, because everybody's phones are out, everybody's recording stuff. There's so many different content creators. They're like on the streets, they're filming everybody. They do not, they give you any sort of privacy. They don't get consent, and your private life isn't private anymore. Even for celebrities, like constantly being photographed, and it's just getting viral videos of people making a fool of themselves, people arguing, people fighting, people crying. It's traumatizing to have to relive those things over and over, but it's content because people find it funny or people find it interesting, or it's like, what's the hot gossip of what's going on. And This movie kind of gives us an insight into that because it shows how scary it is that we're always capturing things. Like there wasn't even an issue with anyone being recorded when he went there. It was so normal because people are always on their phones, people are always recording things that it didn't even come up. Like older movies would be like, oh no, you can't record me, or like older people would be like, sometimes in real life would be like, oh no, you can't record me, I don't want my face on this, I don't want my face on that. But it's come to a point where it doesn't even matter if we say no anymore because our face is already out there in the back of somebody's video. Like we were eating, had no idea phone was out, and we got snapped in a picture or a video, and there's no more privacy. There's because people will create whatever story they want to put to whatever picture or whatever video that you're already on. So it doesn't matter if you don't want it to happen. People secretly record anyway. Commodification of trauma. In both the film and in real life, trauma becomes a product, like something to edit, something to monetize, something to dissect. She died and he's making content about it. Like, it's not about her, it's just about the story until he starts to care about her. But then later on in this story, Ashton Kutcher's character Quentin says, you don't even know her. Like you're fighting to get to know the real murderer eventually. He tries to learn the real murderer. But you don't actually know her. Like he starts to think he feels feelings for this person that he literally knows nothing about, just based on information that he was given. And that also pre- presents some commentary about how we have parasocial relationships and we start to feel like we're really attached to people that we've never met just based on 5 seconds of information that we've been given, a story that we've created about this person, and then that's how we operate. I think that we know this person when we don't know, we only know the curated version. So is there awareness or is there exploitation? Does storytelling heal people or is it just hijacking people's stories? Who owns the story? Who profits? What about the people who are still grieving while everybody's like hitting play and just trying to consume the content? Another big part of this story is the topic of drug abuse. So there's an opioid epidemic, and they do a great job at showing you how people who are suffering with addiction, whenever they pass away, they're just another statistic of somebody who used and is now no longer there. They It's a running joke. There's satire of it, of how their system is set up. So how the police system there is set up and whose jurisdiction is what and where this person passes away. Does it belong with this person for like this jurisdiction and these people will handle it? And everybody there's one spot where it's like the cross section of all the jurisdictions and everybody will try to keep passing it from person to person to person to person, and therefore the local sheriffs will literally just be like, that person's so accident prone, how could they unalive themselves with a pew pew? That person OD'd? Wow, I didn't know that they were into doing that stuff. So they every single thing is, I don't want to do my job because it's a Saturday or it's a Friday night or it's a something, and you're just like, it's emphasis. I think it's supposed to be dramatic and emphasized, but sometimes I feel like it's probably like exactly like that, and that's just my brain trying to rationalize it and trying to say it can't be that bad, it can't be that bad, but it probably is. So Are we even looking for justice? Are we even trying to see the unique cases? Because each person is unique. Each case of what they're going through is different, regardless of if they OD'd or not. Like something happened to get that person to that point. And there's so many people who fall under the radar and just like there are thousands of people who just get swept as a statistic, and they're just like, "Hmm, oh well, you're just another person that OD'd on the side of the street. You're just another person that's going to get cremated and forgotten because your family isn't looking for you anymore because you've stabbed them in the back too many times. And now they feel like, but I'm not going to look for you until maybe later on." And then they find out years later that you've passed away if somebody ever does come looking for you. So I would say that the movie did a great job at that section, but that section is literally so painful because it's so real of how people treat addiction and how they act like if people aren't human beings. So, the next part of this movie is getting Quentin's confession, where he confesses and reveals that he's the one that allowed her to pass away. He She OD'd and he didn't try to help her. He didn't call the police. He didn't call anybody. He got somebody to drag her to the spot that I was talking about earlier, and just left her there. And as he reveals everything, it's so chilling because there's no remorse there. There's nothing there. It's manipulation, charisma, just I did that. People do it all the time type of thing. Because he admits it, we know he did it, but now there's moral ambiguity that he's brought up because he's now talking about how, oh, you're going to put this on the podcast. And as soon as you put this on the podcast, then people are going to want like a confrontation between you and me, like a interview with me to figure out why would I do this? Why would I do that? Like the mind, the true crime, the content behind it. Then they dig into your past and realize that you're promiscuous, and they realize that you don't actually care about her. So then they question, okay, so why did he come here to make this story? Does that mean that he's the one that actually did it and not the actual killer? Whose version is the correct version? Whose version is going to get remembered? Like it's going to be he said, she said type of thing, even though it's recorded, even though we know who did it. There's so many stories out there now on social media where we know exactly who did it, what the outcome was, and they still don't get punished. There's no justice for the person that's passed away because it gets skewered, it gets twisted. We have reasonable doubt, or we have like just explained away justification, and that's because people do things for different reasons, and it's not black and white. So it's hard to distinguish whether somebody's doing something to cause pain or whether somebody's doing something out of passion or in the heat of the moment. So many things. So it's just a good commentary on that, like that aspect of the movie. You took tragedies turn into think pieces, Reddit threads, true crime episodes, victims lose their humanity because everybody's picking a side of, oh no, then it was her fault because she OD'd and she should have never been doing XYZ, or no, it's his fault because he left her there, or no, it's the guy's fault because at one point in the movie, before we find out who the actual person is, he kind of lashes out at her family, and the mom is like, well, it's your fault because she was loving you and you couldn't even remember her name, etc. That isn't true. And we find out that she was just pretending. She had his name saved in her phone, but it wasn't him. It was the person that murdered her, which is Quentin. But she had it under his Ben's name. But for a second, like we blame him because it's just like, okay, if she actually, because we didn't know that the murderer was not him. But like maybe she did OD because he did that, and you can see how that story is believable. You can see how you can go down that line and be like, makes sense. Is this person just clout chasing or actually seeking justice? Can it be both? So then when Ben kills Quentin because he says that whole monologue of questioning the morality of it, he just goes bang and then deletes the episodes that he's done, walks out, tells the brother, they drag him to the spot. Then it's another scene where the police get the radio and it's just like, oh, he's very clumsy with a pew pew. And it's the satire again because you know that that's not what happened. But it gives you that kind of, oh, we got justice because we got a killer intellectually. But then it's also just like, no, that feels kind of like a failure. So emotionally, it feels like a win. Intellectually, it feels like a failure because now our morals are being questioned. Because are we satisfied that he just killed Quentin? Isn't that just as bad as Quentin killing the girl? Like, who's going to take accountability? Because Quentin gets away with it just because no one in that, like, it literally just makes Quentin another statistic. Ben, another statistic. He's now a murderer and is okay with it. Just like how Quentin was a murderer and he was okay with it. Like, at which point do we go, it's still wrong? So no one takes accountability when the system doesn't care? Is the question. So everyone is just telling stories. Maybe silence is the only way to protest, but are we being silent? It leaves you with such a twisted like look of I don't know how I feel about this. Because when you connect it to reality, true crime interviewers with perpetrators, their humanity versus the victim's silence. We give mics to murderers, but not to the lives they ended. What does justice look like in a world obsessed with the narrative? Like those three thought processes, like the person has passed away. They can't say he manipulated me, he did this, he did that. And even if they could, when we look at sexual cases, we can interview victims sometimes and their story is still twisted. Oh, you should have never did that, or you should have never done this. And people only care about what they think is the right thing for their story. And if it doesn't fit into their story, black and white, then suddenly it's not enough. Suddenly the story isn't good enough, even though we have a victim and we have a perpetrator. So I would wrap this movie up as probably, if I went on it as how it was starting, I would have been like, okay, this is like a 1 or 2 out of 5 stars because this is a trash movie that I just put on, like I can tolerate it. But then it went up to like a 3 because 3 or 4. Like if we dive deep in it to look at what you have to look at to get the movie, it's a highly, in my opinion, it would be a highly rated movie. However, for some people, they don't want to dig that deep. They don't want to look at that aspect of the world. And it just so happens that I was able to grasp it because of me just needing something to put on. It wasn't world changing enough. That sounds funny to say, but it wasn't like that great that it got other people to talk about it and to get other people to see the movie. So it can't be like a 5, or, and I can't really say that it's a 4 either, because it wasn't that great still. It was good at getting some of the emotions out of me, but not so much. And I love movies where they make you cry, they make you angry, they make you happy. And this, it made me perk up and go, ooh, that's interesting. Like, that's something that people should talk about. And would I have not had that insight if I wasn't making content about it? Maybe not. Because I'm always now looking for content, essentially, just like the things that I've been talking about earlier. So if I wasn't looking for the content and I wasn't in the same cycle as others, wouldn't I would I have then paid attention to the context that and the story that it was trying to give off? It definitely left us with moral grayness of justice, the performative nature of grief and truth, the ethics of storytelling and exploitation, the seductive danger of vengeance disguised as justice. So, final question. If you were given the power to rewrite the ending of someone else's story, would you? I will see you in our next episode. Bye, guys.